This is Sal, and you are listening to the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast on the BS Podcast Network.
In a world of ordinary fantasy football podcasts, ordinary guys rise up to bring you extraordinary analysis and entertainment. This is the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts Kevin Cotillo, Sal Lito, and Stephen Marcus.
Tag team back again. Check it, record, let's begin. Party on, party people, let me hear some noise. DC's in the house, jump, jump, rejoices. There's a party over here, a party over there. Wave your hands in the air, shake the dairy, yeah. These three words mean you're getting busy. Whoop, there it is, hate man. Whoop, there it is. 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 Upside down and inside out. I'm about to show all you folks what it's all about. Now it's time for them to get on the mic and make this party hot. I'm taking it back to the old school, cause I'm an old fool who's so.
What is up, Falafel? Welcome to the show. Steve, I don't care what day it is. We don't do that when get out here. All I know is it's Sunday. Who the hell knows the date? And football sucked today. I don't know about you, but I felt like football sucked. There was just so many bad performances. If you look at the leaderboards, you find names up there like Ted Ginn Jr., Latavius Murray. These are the guys that had big games. These guys weren't in anybody's lineup today, Steve. Would you even consider starting one of those two guys?
No, absolutely not. It was an ugly, ugly day of fantasy football, the DFS football, anything. The big stars, the Cowboys, a lot of point-scoring positional players on the Cowboys, which makes me very sad. I'm not a huge Cowboys fan, but yeah, it was ugly. I was not a big fan at all. I've been depressed most of the day.
Well, that just sounds like Sunday for you.
Yeah.
But you're either a Cowboy fan, like the Cowboy fans are diehard Cowboy fans, or you don't like the Cowboys. I've never seen an in-between on that. It's really one of those teams. And it's like the Yankees, who sadly were eliminated from the playoffs last night. There's Yankee fans, and then there's everybody else who hates the Yankees. So that's the Cowboys. But yes, we are not. Kevin's not here again tonight. We are sad for that because
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, he's not here. Normally he does hello, good morning, good afternoon. You're familiar with that?
No, never heard that.
Our good friend Kevin is moving, and he's been working his ass off to get all that done, and he's got moving trucks coming in the morning, and he's a little beat today, and he wants to sit down, enjoy his Patriots tonight, and just relax. So it'll just be me and Steve going game. So Steve, I think we're going to kick off with the Bills and the Bucks, if I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong. So for once. But yeah, that's actually where we're going to start. Jameis Winston, he ended up making the start for the Buccaneers today, and he ended up being one of the highest scoring quarterbacks in all of Sunday. So he ends up with 384 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Evidently the shoulder is feeling just fine, and but not enough to eke out a win in Buffalo. LaShawn McCoy, he finally scores his first touchdown of the year, and then he doubles that up. He scores 2. He rushes for 91 yards and also adds a few yards in the receiving game as well. So what's your biggest takeaway from this game? Tampa Bay, 2-4 right now. Would you say they are underperforming from what you expected from them this year?
Well, I was not personally one of those people who expected a lot from them, but there was a lot of buzz around them for this season that they were going to be better and they should make the playoffs. So I think on a whole, from what the experts thought, they are underperforming. My biggest takeaway from this game, and this happened a lot to me this week, the sink or swim they had some misses, and because it was just a weird day, and Jameis Winston was that guy. He was my sink quarterback. Coming into this game, Buffalo had given up 2 total passing touchdowns and 0 at home. So he got 3 today. So that was a huge day for Winston. I was very shocked to see that continue. And I guess in the ongoing battle between you and Kevin over Jordan, O.J. Howard rather, and Cameron Brate, both get 6 receptions, but Howard leads the day with 98 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Another big blown coverage touchdown, which he had earlier in the year. So he's like stealth. He must like just disappear and then swing, just pop back up. So, taken away from this game, I thought Buffalo would win it, to be honest with you, and they did. I never thought that Tampa would put up the passing stats that they did. We got another. Oh, here's another guy who was high on the leaderboards this week. 4 catches for 107 yards. His name Deontay Thompson. He was signed off the. He was signed off the street this week. He was not in the NFL 4 days ago. He had 4 receptions for 107 yards, and Zay Jones ended up with 2 for 17. Jordan Matthews 2 for 10. So there's probably nothing you want at all in that Buffalo passing game. And as we expected, it's LaShawn McCoy's team. It's, by the way, going against Kevin in today. I was facing both McCoy and OJ Howard. So kick it the Bulls.
Oh, that is rough. Yeah, I was gonna have to mention Deontay Thompson because it just lets me know that my dream is not yet dead. You know, I've still got a chance no matter what anybody says.
Is your dream picking him up off of waivers?
Yes.
You weren't implying that you were going to catch up football in the NFL, right?
Hey, if OJ Howard can be that wide open, I think I could have scored that touchdown. I could have 2 touchdowns on this year right now. Just catch those wide open passes and run. I can do that.
You heard it, folks. If Steve Marcus is not on the show next week, it's because he's dead on a football field somewhere in America.
I'll tell you, I've been running all my life, so I'm ready. All right, well, there is not much else to take away from that game. Mike Evans, he does get into the end zone again with another nice touchdown. Doug Martin, he had a very rough day rushing, not getting quite 50 yards. So better days ahead for them, but I believe we can move on from that one. Would you agree?
See?
All right, we're going to talk about another offensive outburst from the Chicago defense, who scored 2 touchdowns today. The Chicago Bears beat the Carolina Panthers 17-3, and Mitchell Trubisky, the winning quarterback in this one, he goes 4 for 7 with 107 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Man, what a weird game this was. Cam Newton, would you have expected this from Cam Newton? How did your day go with him?
So, yeah, I was pretty bummed out about this. So a buddy of mine called me up. He's like, hey, you want to go watch the games at a bar today, the 1 o'clock games? I'm like, all right, I haven't done that in a long time. I generally sit down and watch Red Zone. You know what it made me realize? I like sitting down and watching Red Zone. I sat in front of 12 TVs. It was too friggin' confusing because you're like, oh, I don't want to miss a play over here because they're not going to replay it like they do on Red Zone. The big plays get replayed. So I quickly realized, oh, no. I saw Cam Newton, and I saw the fumble, which wasn't charged to him, thank God, that on a flick to Curtis Samuel. And I'm like, oh, no, I think I forgot to take him out of my lineup. All week I said for sure I'm playing Carson Wentz over Cam Newton, and I didn't do it. So I got like a 7 or an 8 out of Cam Newton, which is just terrible. And I know Wentz is going to have a nice night tomorrow night. It's making my matchup with Kevin so friggin' close because of that. I need big nights from a lot of guys or else I'm going to lose in a matchup I should have definitely won in. But I don't know. That offense that is a frustrating offense on both sides. These offenses were frustrating today, but you expect more from Carolina. And Cam he's trying to run too much now, and he's holding the ball, and he's trying for that big running play. There were guys open. He was getting tackled, or he would go for short gains on the runs instead of getting the ball out of his hands. And that's the hang up with him. He could be absolutely dazzling one week and another week so frustrating. I think this was one of those frustrating weeks. I mean, McCaffrey, maybe you got to get it. Maybe you got to handle the ball more. He had 7 carries for only 10 yards, but you're getting nothing out of Stewart either. 14 for 48. You got guys there that can make plays. I like that they decided to get Samuel involved today. And what happens the minute they flick the ball to him? He looks like he's got rocks for fingers. He's never seen football before, and that turned the game around. Chicago's defense was electric today, and they single-handedly won this game because those are the only 2 touchdowns scored in this game with defensive returns. It's very rare that a team wins a game by 14 points, and there's not one great statistic on offense for the entire team.
Yeah, it's amazing. You look at their box score, you've got Mitchell Trubisky in the passing category. For rushing, you've got Jordan Howard and Mitchell Trubisky for 5 carries for 3 yards. And you look at receiving, they've got 3 players that received a target.
He threw 7 passes.
Yeah, they have Tariq Cohen, 1 for 70, Zach Miller, 2 for 29, and Tanner Gentry for 1 for 8. That is it. That's got to be the smallest box score for any NFL game ever. I've never seen one smaller. So
and a winning one, no less. And,
exactly.
And you might, if you're not paying attention, if you don't sit around, if you play fantasy football, there's a lot of fringe people that play fantasy football that don't sit down and watch it all day. You might be like, all right, Cohen, 8 points in PPR. That's pretty good. He got 1 target, 1 catch, 70 yards.
3 targets, but still.
3 targets. I'm sorry, 3 targets, 1 catch, 70 yards on that 1 catch. And it was him who made that play, and he didn't see a single carry in this game. So, hey, the Bears have had some nice wins this year. They beat Pittsburgh. Now they beat Carolina, 2 teams that are fighting for first place in their divisions. So, good for the Bears. They're in a division that's wide open. They're not going to win anything because I think that Minnesota's kind of salting that away as we speak. But, yeah, there's really not much fantasy relevance. Manhurts caught a ball. That's a great name for Carolina. Manhurts.
Manhurts.
Must have been a good life going through with that name.
Yeah, I'm sure he didn't get picked on at all. Not once.
No, he's pretty big, so I would have stayed away from him.
Yeah, that's true. If he was taller than me, that's the rule. All right, I think we're going to move on from that one to another offensive barn burner. We've got the Tennessee Titans traveling to Cleveland. They beat them 12-9 in a game that featured 0 touchdowns, all field goals. So those Ryan Suckup owners, I hope you had a good day. I really do. But other than that, you really had nothing. You had Marcus Mariota looking pretty pedestrian in the pocket today. Not his running prowess that we're all used to, of course, because he's nursing that hamstring injury. He has 203 yards on 21 completions. DeMarco Murray, for some reason, was active today, making Derrick Henry almost completely useless. Both of those guys, they total 72 yards on 31 carries. Yeah. Oh, as soon as Henry or Murray, I'm sorry, was declared active, I pulled Murray out of Henry. Jesus, I can't even keep these guys straight. I pulled Henry out of every lineup I had because it was like, oh, it's gonna ruin everything, and of course it did. So, yeah, just an ugly game on both sides of the ball. Duke Johnson, Isaiah Crowell, they only combined for just over 50 yards rushing. And Kaiser, starting quarterback, gets pulled at the half. So there's just no consistency on either of these teams. Delaney Walker, he was the receiving leader for the Titans. He ends up leaving with an injury. Word is that he's on crutches now following this game. This is just another ugly game offensively from a fantasy output. You didn't like anybody on this game at all.
Yeah, and this is the time where I hate doing this podcast because I'm going to say something now that I'm going to have to fight people for this guy. But add Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith had early success with Delaney Walker in the lineup, and he came right in and had a catch after Walker left. And this is a good young player. He's a rookie tight end, and I could see this guy, if Walker's going to miss time, which it seems like, this guy will step in seamlessly. And I think he's probably a little bit faster. He's younger. So this is a player, if I'm desperate for a tight end, I'm adding him this week. Crowell, again, like you said, 17 carries, 35 yards. I mean, it's 7 weeks now. You have gotten no return from him at all. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have a touchdown on his season. So Duke Johnson Jr. looks better because of the receptions, right? I mean, he gains 26 yards on his 7 carries, but he gains 45 yards on 6 receptions. So in PPR leagues, he still served you well. Cleveland's got to stop with this BS. You're 0-7, right? They didn't have a bye week yet, right? They're 0-7.
Yep.
Leave Kaiser in the game and stop, man. You're not winning anything. You're not winning anything. So stop with the musical quarterbacks. I realize that Kessler came in and he moved the ball and they got the game tied and they got him to overtime. Who cares? You lost again. Leave Kaiser in the game. Let him make his mistakes. Let him learn from his mistakes. And then after this year, you're either going to draft another guy or it's going to be an open competition next year. But it's 0-7. Stop.
Yep, I'm playing a lot of games. The yardage leader in the receiving game was David Njoku. He's looked pretty solid, but on this team, you can't rely on anybody week to week. They can't even score touchdowns consistently. So it's just a complete crapshoot. It's ugly in Cleveland, as we have grown accustomed to. Tennessee, You think that things are going to get better there. Eric Decker, he had a nice game last week. He has 0 catches on 2 targets this week. Rashard Matthews, he has 6 targets, so he is the receiver that you're going to want there the most, I believe, after Delaney Walker goes down, but I completely agree. Jonnu Smith, he is the guy that you are going to want to add in Delaney Walker's absence. All right, anything else from that one before we move on?
Please, no, thank you.
All right. Well, there were actually some touchdowns scored in this game. We go to Green Bay, where the New Orleans Saints beat the Green Bay Packers 26-17. Everyone was wondering what was going to happen with the Green Bay offense, with Aaron Rodgers going down, Brett Hundley making his start this year, and the receiving game definitely took a hit. But the rushing game, Aaron Jones, very, very good. 17 carries, 131 yards, and a touchdown. That was a first huge touchdown in the first quarter. So do you think that he has completely taken over this backfield, and that's the way they're going to go for the rest of the season?
I can't see why you would do anything different. He's looked spectacular when given the volume. So, I mean, he broke that big run early. I thought this game looked like the Packers had it in hand early. It obviously turned in the second half when Breeze woke up and stopped throwing interceptions. But I can't imagine why I wouldn't trust Jones going forward. Montgomery got 4 carries in this game and 1 reception. Jones had 3 receptions, so he's getting work in the passing game, which we thought if it came down to the 2 rookies, he'd be the guy who got the passing work anyway. Hey, Montgomery was not a running back. Maybe, in college maybe he was, high school maybe he was. He wasn't a running back. So it doesn't surprise me that a kid who's been playing the position and came in as a running back took the job over and just ran with it, which is, kind of a bad pun. But when was the last time you saw a Green Bay offense where the leading receiver had 2 receptions for 17 yards?
Yeah, it's been a long time, a very long time. So I completely agree. I think Aaron Jones is the guy that you're going to want going forward. I think you should be panicking a little bit for Devontae Adams and Jordy Nelson owners. Martellus Bennett, he's not somebody that you were putting a ton of faith in, and Randall Cobb, he had a few good weeks to start the season, but he's been tailing off a little bit as well. On St. Louis's side St. Louis, what the hell is going on around here?
The St. Louis Saints.
St. Louis. Just you wait a couple years. Anyway, New Orleans, the New Orleans Saints. Mark Ingram, 22 carries, 105 yards, and a touchdown, but Alvin Kamara, he also gets 9 carries for 57 and also adds 5 catches for 50 yards. Mark Ingram gets 4 receptions, but only makes those, turns those into 5 yards. And then Ted Ginn Jr., he's the big receiving benefactor of the day. 7 catches for 141 yards. And then Brandon Coleman, he's the one that gets the touchdown from Drew Brees. He throws more interceptions than touchdowns today, but still gets 324 yards. This offense kind of is what you'd expect it at this point, right? Michael Thomas, he doesn't get in the end zone, but he's still the guy that you'd want to roll out there every week.
Yeah, he's the most dynamic receiver on that offense, so you put him in there because I think out of all people, he has the opportunity to have the biggest game on a weekly basis. At one point that I believe it was at halftime, Kamara was out snapping Ingram. So it's just interesting how they work this offense. Ingram has gotten plenty of touches the last 2 weeks, and he's done phenomenal work with the 200-yard games back-to-back and plenty of touchdowns. Something that's interesting for me, and Kevin's not here to discuss it, but I think it was the episode you missed a couple of Tuesdays ago when we talked about a question that was given to us about a trade, and it was Tariq Cohen and Sammy Watkins for redraft, Tariq Cohen and Sammy Watkins for Christian McCaffrey and Ted Ginn Jr. And I said, without a doubt, it was Ginn and McCaffrey because I want McCaffrey in that deal. And I felt at this point, at this stage in this season, Watkins and Ginn are both hit or miss fantasy players. And the response was, how could you say that they're on equal ground? I don't think that Ginn's the player that Watkins is, but look at what this guy did today. He scored 1 or 2 touchdowns last week, I believe, Ginn. So in the 2 weeks since that trade happened, Ginn has been the best player out of all 4 people mentioned in that deal. It's just funny that that's the way things go, and that's not to harp on anything. It's just to make the point that crazy things happen every week in fantasy, and guys who have superb talent like Sammy Watkins don't always have the best game. So, but you asked about Michael Thomas, I believe. Yeah, I'd get him in there still. I still get Michael Thomas in there every week. Wouldn't stop me.
Yeah, and Willie Snead, he was inactive. He's a guy that I know Sal loves, or what do you think of Willie Snead? Is he another lost season for him?
Yeah, I mean, where he's played one game now out of 6 because they've had their bye week already, and he did nothing, little to nothing in that game. So this off again, on again, injuries, suspensions. Here's what I would say. If you have him and you can afford to keep him, like you don't need that spot for someone to put in, leave him at the end of your bench because there's a lot of season left, and he could come back and he could work himself back into shape and be an integral part of this offense, as I think that everybody was expecting him to be coming into this year. So I'm not ready to cut bait on him now. He's not going to be getting into my lineups, but I'd like to see some steady progression, and maybe week 10, week 11, I'm looking for the playoffs. He starts to get comfortable. I put him in. So outside of that, I mean, what are you going to play? Brandon Coleman? Get out of here.
Get out of here. All right. Unless you have anything else to talk about on this one, we're going to move on.
Let's go. Come on. Let's go.
All right. Another offensive outburst we have here from the Jacksonville Jaguars, going to Indianapolis and beating the Colts 27-0. Just one of a few shutouts we saw today, or near shutouts at least. Blake Bortles, 18 for 26, 330 yards and a touchdown. He had 20 pass attempts in the first quarter, or in the first half, and they just refused to give Chris Ivory the ball. I know he had a fumble that was in the second half, but man, their offense seemed to change without Leonard Fournette in that lineup. And that is most noticeable by the fact that T.J. Yeldon had 9 carries for 122 yards and a touchdown. What the hell is going on here in Jacksonville, Sal?
Yeah, it was the ghost of Yeldon passed. I mean, I think that everybody had him dead and buried, and then he comes back in this game. I actually saw the back of his jersey on the TV screen. I was like, wait, he still plays for Jacksonville? What the hell's going on here? So everybody picked up Chris Ivory today, threw him in their lineups. If you had him on your bench, I know I did. I had a league where I'm desperate at positions everywhere. I heard Ivory was starting. I popped him in. Hey, he got 17 carries. He only produced 47 yards, but he did get the touchdown. So he has a nice fantasy day. I don't believe he caught a single pass, and after catching 9 last week, that was a little disappointing. But we know that his role was never pass catching back. One of the things I did get right or sink or swim this week, and the reason I felt this was exactly like you said. I thought Fournette would be banged up at the time that I wrote the article. I didn't think that he was going to miss the game. But Blake Bortles has played well against the Indy, now 5 straight games. His 5th straight game without an interception. He passed for 330 yards and a touchdown today. He had like 285 at halftime. So
yeah,
they clearly went to the ground game in the second half and to salt the game away because they were up so big. I thought Indy would put up some points in this game. They've played well, not great, well. Brissett, no turnovers, 200 yards even, but not another statistical, something that sticks out to you like that was great. I said maybe in PPR, if you decided to buy into the Marlon Mack hype, you got 66 total yards out of him with 4 extra receptions. So in the PPR, full PPR, you got a little over 10 points, but really nothing from Gore and a little something from Doyle. But if Doyle doesn't get that touchdown, which he didn't because no one did, that's a goose egg. He's not really – doesn't benefit you.
Yeah, this game was pretty ugly right from the get. Jacksonville jumped out to an early lead. They got a turnover, I believe, and then they just started running up the score. I couldn't believe that Blake Bortles threw the ball so many times. I believe he had a game earlier this year. We had 19 total attempted passes in a game, and he had 20 in the first half when they obviously were up by 14-0, 17-0. He was still throwing the ball. I expected a little more out of Ivory. I saw a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of big names had him ranked as a top 10 running back today because of the matchup and because of Fournette being out, and he just did not deliver. You mentioned what he did. He also had the fumble that took away a few fantasy points. And I expected a little bit more. Also expected a lot more from Indianapolis on the ground. Less than 100 rushing yards. Obviously, when they get down by so much, they got to abandon that. But I would just wish they would give Marlon Mack a little bit more run. He is obviously the most dynamic player in their backfield right now. They've got some decent receivers there, of course, and Hilton and Moncrief. Chester Rogers, awesome, so awesome. Kamar Aiken, I know you love him. But they need to do something. They're not doing anything. They're 2-5. Andrew Luck's not going to come back this season. Their season's pretty much over. They should give Marlon Mack a real chance to show what he can do.
Stevie Hot Takes just basically told all you people who've been holding on to Luck to drop him. So drop him now. Drop him hard.
I mean, unless you got a lot of IR spots that you can hold him in, what's the point?
Yeah, I had to move on in one league. I think I'm holding him in 2 others right now, but I have the room to do it. But you're right. I had to. It was bye week last week for Russell Wilson, and my backup was Andrew Luck. So had to do it. All right, we're gonna move on to the London game. That was a primetime London game, but a regular time football game for us. 1 o'clock. Oh, it's a prime time in London. You're saying so? There was. I got it. Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Carry on.
That's right. The Arizona Cardinals versus the Los Angeles Rams, and this was not a game at all. My God, this was terrible. The Rams won 33-0. Carson Palmer 10 for 18 for 122, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, before he ends up leaving the game with what is being described as a broken left arm, which would most likely mean the end of the season for him. And with the Cardinals being at 3-4 and Drew Stanton taking over at the helm with already losing David Johnson, that would probably be a end of the season for the Arizona Cardinals, I would believe. 1 week after Adrian Peterson. Sal, tell me about Adrian Peterson. What the hell happened today?
Well, I mean, he did not get the space that he needed earlier in the game when he was getting touches, but this game got so out of hand that they kind of went away from the run. He only ended up with 11 carries in the game, but he only got 21 yards on those carries. He did get the 1 reception for 12 yards to add a little bit of value. I played him in a couple of places today. This game was ugly. You described it well. Larry Fitzgerald only had 3 for 29. This is another game where the leading receiver on the team had 37 yards, and they've been a good passing offense up until this week. So you got to hope that with Drew Stanton coming in, who's been named the starting quarterback, that he could keep the weapons viable. Maybe this is a good thing for Peterson because maybe they have to rely on a run a little bit more now. But he was a guy I thought was have a big week this week and against the worst rushing defense in the league. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. My dog's crying about it in the background. I don't know if you could hear him.
Your dog always fills in for Kevin's absences. Whenever Kevin's not here, the dog seems to be the most.
He's sad, and I think that's why he's whining the most.
On the Rams side of the ball, Jared Goff, he has a pretty solid afternoon, 235 passing with a touchdown. He also rushes a touchdown on 13 yards, 2 carries. The receiving for Los Angeles, nobody over 60 yards receiving. They got a few receivers over 40. Cooper Kupp ends up getting the lone receiving touchdown. This was just another ugly fantasy football game. So I don't know what else to say. You can start Todd Gurley. He had 22 carries, over 100 yards, and he scored a touchdown. So you got what you wanted out of him. He continues his resurgence this year. Shame on you for anybody that gave up on him. But other than that,
jerks.
You jerks. Look what you did, you little jerk. Anything else from this game? Do you want to say anything else about this London beatdown? 2 shutouts they've seen in London so far this year. I feel bad for them.
Well, yeah, I did not know that they're having another one next weekend. I saw the advertisement today. How many games are we playing in London now? It's gotten crazy, and you know what? It's obvious that you have to definitely take into consideration downgrading your players and your superstars when they play over there. It's so rare that someone has that big game over in London. We've seen it now for years. I guess now 4 times a year. Gurley did manage to have a really good day. He added 4 for 48 receiving as well. And it was nice to see them get back to what has helped them win this year, which is feed Todd Gurley. We saw last week that made that mistake, and it didn't benefit them in the win column. So, no, really not much to add to this other than maybe John Bosch is out there right now, and he probably loves me because I sold him Cooper Kupp this week in one league, and that was good for him. I sold him Des Bryant in another league, and I think that was good for him. So I'm like the farm system feeding his teams.
I sold Sterling Shepard for $125, and he was inactive today.
That I'm going to do the math here. Win for Steve.
I'll tell you, win for me there, loss for me somewhere else where I heard that he was trending towards playing and put him in my starting lineup, and then it became he was inactive, and I had 0 replacements for him.
Ouch.
Loss for Steve. All right. What is becoming one of my favorite games to pay attention to, not necessarily watch, but pay attention to every time they play, the New York Jets versus the Miami Dolphins. This game was very interesting. The Jets went up early, and they went up big on the Miami Dolphins. I believe they were up at one point 28-14.
Yeah, they were up by 28-14, correct.
That is right. All right. And but then Jay Cutler got hurt, and Matt Moore came in, and all of a sudden the Miami Dolphins offense was looked pretty legit. I think it looked pretty good. You had Jarvis Landry making some plays, making some big plays. He did score the touchdown earlier in the day with Jay Cutler in the quarterback position. But other than that, he was making all the plays with Matt Moore. Kenny Stills, he has 2 touchdowns on the day, 85 yards. This was a fun game to watch. These teams aren't 2 teams that you'd think are 3-4 and 4-2, but this was a good one. And I love watching these games. I remember the Chad Pennington, Jay Fiedler, 31-3, huge comeback on Monday night. That is one of my favorite football memories that I have. And so I think I really like this divisional rivalry, no matter how crappy the teams seem coming in.
I think you made a good point there with naming those quarterbacks. You typically end up with quarterbacks in this matchup that people don't know who the hell they are. Like, Matt Moore comes in. Yeah, if you're a deep football guy and a fantasy football guy, you know who Matt Moore is. And while Cutler did have the 2 touchdowns, their numbers were very similar in this game. The offense just looked so much better as soon as Moore came in. I cannot believe that they allowed it to go this far. I thought it was a great signing when they signed Cutler. I'm not going to try to pretend like I wasn't on board when I was like, this is great. Gase had him when he was in Chicago. They're going to work great together. But I think weeks ago, when they were not performing in back-to-back games, and again, the fact that they're 4-2, when I heard that today, I was like, really? Because they had a back-to-back games that were atrocious where they couldn't score points. They scored their first half touchdown today after 6 weeks. Cutler's probably out with a cracked rib. Maybe that's it. Yeah, maybe that's it, and he walks away, he's done. But regardless, this offense looked better with Moore. Moore has been there, and I think it's better for the Dolphins right now, and I think it's obviously better for our fantasy players that play in that offense. Landry, Stills, who came up big, Parker when he gets healthy, and maybe it gives you more room for Ajayi to run. He had a very pedestrian day, 23 carries for 51 yards. But even the tight ends got heavily involved in this game, and it looked really, really good. So over on the Jets side, I was watching the game early and saying to myself, man, anybody who took the gamble on McCown, it's paying off. This guy's played really well. This guy's been a pretty consistent fantasy producer on a weekly basis. So in 2 QB leagues, if you waited and you got this guy as your second QB, you're loving life right now because he's playing really well. This was a big game for the running backs. When I say that is they were more heavily involved. Powell and Forte almost even touches, 9 and 7, 43 and 41 yards respectively. I mentioned the other night you could probably consider dropping McGuire. Drop him 3 for 7. He's not a factor in this offense right now. But Forte and Powell, again, led the team in receiving as well. Forte 5 for 41 and Powell 2 for 40. And Forte had some moves today, Steve. I don't know if you saw a play where he juked a couple of guys and he bulldozed his way to a first down. But he looks really good. Maybe the time off served him well, and maybe you get the old Matt Forte down the stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a big third down, 3rd and long, and he ended up making his way all the way up and converting on that. I did see that. That was great. But, yeah, other than the running backs, I don't think you can rely on any of these wide receivers, except for Austin Seferian-Jenkins, of course. He scores another touchdown, although he only had 3 catches for 21 yards. He seems to be a huge red zone target. So, at this point, with how volatile that position is, I think you got to get Austin Seferian-Jenkins in there every single week. For Miami, I just want to shout out really quick to Gio, who all season long, ever since Ryan Tannehill went down with the injury, has been screaming Matt Moore's name. He has been all over Matt Moore. He is the conductor of the Matt Moore bandwagon. And I just want to, I am on board as well. I think Matt Moore is the answer to quarterback right now. I agree. The offense looked much better with him in there. And so I would lean that way. If Jay Cutler's probably going to miss some time. He's going to have a game or two to show everybody that he's the guy that the offense is going to be revolving around from now on.
I'll tell you, I'll give you Gio even more credit. This goes back to when Tannehill was healthy, and last year he was screaming. He was screaming for Matt Moore. So he is the leader of that bandwagon, as you said. It's a bandwagon of, I'm pretty sure, him and Matt Moore's wife. But it's going to get bigger this week for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Message. Someone getting a hold of you? I heard a ding.
What was that?
I heard a ding. Nothing?
Ding.
No ding?
No ding. There was no ding.
Oh, I heard a ding. There was definitely a ding. You don't want to tell me what it is? You holding out on me?
There was no ding.
All right. We're going to move on to the last of these afternoon games. The Baltimore Ravens go to Minnesota, face the Minnesota Vikings. We got Case Keenum and Joe Flacco. Both of these quarterbacks total less than 200 yards each. Man, this was an ugly game. Who thought Latavius Murray was going to have 18 carries for 113 yards and a touchdown? Did you get him in your lineups today, Sal?
He was in precisely 0 lineups, sir.
All right, and then you had Alex Collins with 10 carries for 30 yards. Buck Allen, 6 carries for 20 yards. Michael Campanaro, 1 carry for 19 yards. And then that's about it for the Ravens. So any of those guys in your lineup? Was there anybody in this game in your lineup that you were excited or happy or thought was a good matchup? This game was awful.
Yeah, I thought McKinnon had a good matchup today because Baltimore traditionally gives up a lot to pass-catching running backs. So I think a lot of people thought McKinnon was going to have a good game. He got plenty of touches. He got 14 carries, only 47 yards, and he added another 3 receptions. I'm sure people had Adam Thielen in there and were excited about that, but 5 for 41 is not what you've come to expect from him. He usually has many more receptions than that. And with Diggs out, you always love the prospects of a big game for him. So I'm sure people were disappointed. And be honest, in Capo's picks too, I did have Javaris Allen in my lineup. So not happy to see him not have a big game. 8 receptions does help you a little bit if it's full PPR, but no yardage to speak of.
Yeah, 8 receptions for 29 yards. So that's rough there. Benjamin Watson was the leading. He had the most receptions, but he only had 38 yards. It was just an ugly game all around, especially from a betting aspect. The over-under on this game was 39, and Baltimore scored a touchdown with 4 seconds left in the game to push that to an over. So that's always fun to talk about those.
Good times.
Yeah, absolutely. But other than that, there's nobody. Stephon Diggs is out of this game, like we talked about. Case Keenum, just Baltimore has a great defense. So this game was just pretty ugly all around. A lot of field goals. If you had Kai Forbath in this game, I'm sure you're probably really happy. But other than that,
I had Tucker. I had a nice day out of Tucker. He got me like 14 points.
Yeah, he had a pretty solid day as well. But yeah, so kickers only. And defenses, I guess, had a pretty solid day as well from this one. But other than that, pretty atrocious, I would say.
Did you say atrocious? I don't think that's a word.
Atrocious.
Oh, is that the word?
Yeah, that's the word. So would I be right to say that you probably didn't have any Vikings or Ravens in your draft lineups this week, Sal?
I did not. No, there was much better players to choose, even though those players also did not perform very well. I know when we discussed this on Thursday's show, you asked me what player I got to have in there, and it was Leonard Fournette, and not even the Jaguars had him in there. So not a big winning week for me on draft, but I could make up for that by getting in games that start tonight and games that start tomorrow. There's always an opportunity to get in basketball and NHL rather. And golf is always a way to make your money back. So if you suffered through a terrible week where none of your superstars performed and guys like Blake Bortles were good, get on the draft app, draft a new team to make up for those losses, and make you feel a little bit warmer.
You know what? I've been accused of being a gambling addict on this podcast before. And just that simple sentence is that there's always a way to make it back is probably the most addictive sentence I've ever heard in my entire life.
I felt a light go off above your head when I said that.
Oh, no. If you had Dak Prescott, I'm sure you're feeling pretty good. But the best part, like you said, is that if you have a bad week, that's the best thing about DFS, is that you've got an opportunity each and every week, each and every day, basically, to pick a new lineup. You pay attention, you see what's going on, you can pick the perfect lineup going forward, and you can rectify all those bad decisions, and you can get all that money back. It's always possible, and if you go to playdraft.com/falafel and you deposit $10 or more, you are going to get a free entry into yet another contest. So free chances to earn all of your money back, and what's better than that? Free money. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I mean, who's not a fan of free money? And, you mentioned Dak Prescott, and I think the next game we get into is this Cowboy 49er game. And those were the studs today, right? Those were the guys who showed up and did what they were supposed to do, right, Steve?
Yeah, those are the ones. I mean, this is why people look towards things like the spreads, the totals that Vegas puts out, because this is the second highest total of the day at 48.5. The highest being the Falcons-Patriots game at 56.5, which is huge. But, this is why they look at this. You have Dak Prescott, throws for 234 and 3 touchdowns, also adds a rushing touchdown on 26 yards. And then you had Zeke Elliott rush for 147 and 2 touchdowns and have a receiving touchdown on 72 yards. So these studs in this game, Des Bryant, he has 63 yards receiving with 7 catches and another touchdown. Jason Witten, he has a touchdown. So basically, these studs of Dallas all got in the end zone. They all produced for you this week. And then you look on the 49ers side of the ball where they're starting rookie C.J. Beathard. They had a rough day. Not what you were expecting out of the 49ers. They don't have a ton of offensive weapons, but they've been competitive in a lot of games this season, and they were just blown out right from the gate here.
Yeah, I decided to trust your boy George Kittle and Scott Fishbowl this week, and I got a big fat 1 reception for 16 yards. But, hey, he got a first down on that, so I get the premium for that. But wasn't what I was hoping for. But, Dallas showed up strong. We did not recommend Witten this week because San Francisco has been the best in the league at defending tight ends, and he caught a beautiful one-handed reception. So he goes 4 for 54 and a touchdown. It's the best day anybody's had against San Francisco as a tight end for a while. So, there's really not much more to add about this game. You hit on all the studs and duds, and it sees that 48 over under, and the Cowboys had to do all the work to get that one over at scoring 40 out of the 50 points.
Yeah, I mean, Carlos Hyde, he had a decent day, 14 carries for 68 yards, but you get down by so much, they're going to abandon the running game. He did also add 4 receptions for another 20 yards, so he had a pretty decent day as well. Pierre Garçon, a PPR guy, 5 catches for 49, but other than that, you'd expect some more competitive games going forward, so yeah, not too much more to add from that one. Continuing on. Do we have to talk? I don't know if we want to even talk about this game. This game was ugly as well.
This was crap.
God, Seattle Seahawks go to the New York Giants. And New York, after shocking a lot of people last week going into Denver and handling my Broncos, they go back home and get handled themselves by the Seattle Seahawks. We have Russell Wilson. He's got over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. He ends up on the day, so, I mean, a great day from him. But, outside of Doug Baldwin, who had 9 catches for 92 yards and a touchdown, you got a bunch of junk. I think he had more drops than catches from Jimmy Graham this week, so he could have had a huge game. He does salvage it with a touchdown.
I mean, he does have a solid day, right?
Yeah.
But he did. He dropped some easy passes, one in the end zone.
What could have been. I mean, and he dropped one in the end zone. He dropped a wide open catch that he had on the sideline that he was going to be able to run with. And then their rushing game is just, good luck with that. 11 rushes from Rawls and Lacey. What's his name? CJ Procise. I can't remember his name because he
played in this game for like a minute or two.
Exactly. He was active, which nobody thought he was going to be, and then he went out because he got hurt. So, just rough.
Some guys are not meant to play in the NFL, and I mean that seriously.
Yeah.
Good players, you see this all the time. They can never stay healthy. Procise is officially one of those guys. It was Percy Harvin was one of those guys. These dynamic players that can change a game, but can't get on the football field.
Can't do it. Just can't do it. And so on. What?
Were you going to talk about the Giants? I'll let you go.
I was just going to say, outside of Evan Ingram on the Giants, what else do you even want to talk about or try getting into your lineup? This team looks so awful on the majority of the time. What do you do with this team?
Sell, run, hide. Yeah, you don't play anybody except for Ingram, and unless you have like a super matchup with running backs. Do you play those running backs? Darkwear has had a couple of good weeks, and I think he's officially the lead running back, but 9 for 35, and Goldman has 5 more for 15, but it's just not a lot there. And the Giants were winning this game for a while, a very ugly 7-3 game for the longest time, and then blip, blip, blip. Russell Wilson salvaged his day, Doug Baldwin salvaged his day, and they win it going away 24-7. But that game for a long time on both sides was just horrible to watch.
Yeah, it was bad, and I don't think it's going to get much better for New York. They've got Sterling Shepard. He was going to be back today, like we said, and then he ended up being inactive. When he comes back, that might make a little bit of a difference, but I think the problems with New York are not that they don't have talent at the wide receiver position right now, because they had talent at that position earlier in the year, and they were still struggling a lot offensively. I think they got much bigger problems, and so I think it's Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, and I think that's all you can really trust week to week, and I wouldn't be putting much faith in any more than that. All right, we're going to move on. Unfortunately, to the Denver Broncos getting shut out. I believe this is our third shutout that we've talked about today, when they traveled to Los Angeles to face the Chargers. And this was another just ugly game all around from a fantasy output. Trevor Siemian.
Hey, remember when you said that the Giants shocked everybody? Is it that shocking now after watching the way Denver played today?
I don't know. Obviously their offense has got a lot of problems at the moment, but I think the Chargers right now, I think their defense is a little bit better than the Giants. So I think
and they have won 3 straight, the Chargers, and division games too.
Yep, and they were in Los Angeles as opposed to being home against the Giants. So
that's not really a home field advantage.
Yeah, you're absolutely
There's 7
right
people at the game.
You're absolutely right there. But I think this one would have been a little more expected. I would expect them to lose this game more than the game against the Giants last week. But yeah, there's nothing from a fantasy output anywhere here other than Travis Benjamin. He had a really good game.
Yeah, Travis Benjamin just was electric with his speed today. He scored 2 touchdowns strictly based on speed. One of them a punt return, and the other one a pass over the middle. But that was fun to watch. And, there's great players all over this NFL that just get buried sometimes. That is a guy that if he got more usage, he could absolutely be a fantasy stalwart. Stalworth?
Something? Star Wars?
Star Wars. Oh, remember that with Bill Murray? You might be too young for that, Steve.
Yeah. What is this, Saturday Night Live?
Saturday Night Live bit, yeah.
I love Saturday Night Live, but...
Look it up!
Oh, YouTube. All right. I'll pay a visit later. For Denver side of the ball, A.J. Derby. He has the most receiving yards in the game with 6 catches for 66 yards. Demaryius Thomas, where are you? Oh, there you are. 2 receptions for 9 yards. That's awesome. That's what everybody
started him for the first time this year in Cousin Donald's league today.
Yeah, that's what everyone's expecting from the number 1 wide receiver with Emmanuel Sanders missing the game. That was pretty cool, especially when you had an 80-plus yard reception called back for offensive pass interference. Big fan of that. C.J. Anderson, 10 carries, 44 yards, no touchdowns. No touchdowns for Denver at all in this game, or field goals, as you can tell, because I said they scored 0 points. So, ugly.
That offense has stalled. It's definitely stalled over recent weeks.
Oh, it's been so bad. So bad.
Does it make me sad as a Raider fan? Not at all.
Well, no. I can't see why it would. So thanks for bringing that up.
No problem, buddy.
I'm sure you guys will be passing us up shortly as soon as you have your bye week and we lose another game. So, anything else from here? I mean, Hunter Henry, he's the guy. He's the guy that you want.
Oh, I got something I want to say.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. What is with Eckler taking my receiving touchdown from Gordon?
I think that's Anthony Lynn heard about everything you had to say last year to Mike McCoy, and he's like, "Give me some of that. Give me some of that hate."
Listen, Gordon has carried. If you have Gordon, you've gotten substantial value from him. He has carried my falafel team specifically over the last 2 weeks coming into this week. Tough day early on. He had a goal, a first and goal at the 1, and I was like, bam, here comes a touchdown. They went to him 4 straight times from the 1, and he was stuffed every time. Denver is no joke against the run. 0 rushing touchdowns given up this year, and probably nobody's gone over 40 yards as an individual against them. So Eckler gets the little out pass, which is something they've been doing with Gordon. Both of his touchdowns last week were those quick out passes. So it disappointed me there because that touchdown makes his week fantasy irrelevant, but he does have probably his worst game of the season. And like you said, Hunter Henry, he's taken this over. Gates is probably a drop. I noticed you dropped him, Falafel. He's probably a drop wherever you have him because even that touchdown potential, it's gone. He got the record, and it looks like after he got that record, like a lot of people thought, he'd become an afterthought. So it looks like he's playing a string out, not quite playing a string out, sitting the sideline for the string out. This is how many games have we gone over so far? And each time you've said, is there really anything else you want to talk about in this game? There's really not. There were not a lot of big performances this week. Not from guys that started in your lineups.
Yep. And I'll just say Orleans Darkwa definitely got over 40 yards against Denver's defense on Sunday night.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that last week he actually had over 100 yards.
Yeah, he ran all over them because Orleans Darkwa. That's why.
No, I mean,
that's why.
Enough said.
All right. We have flown through these games so far today.
we have one left, right?
Yeah, one left. This is the last one.
We have Bengals and the Steelers. Get it all.
Bengals and
Rivalry.
the Steelers. Actually, a stud that you would have had in your lineup that came through. We had the Cincinnati Bengals losing to Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. The score was 29-14. And Le'Veon Bell, amazing that when he gets 35 carries, who cares if his yards per carry is only 3.8? He got 35 carries. So he's got 134 yards rushing. And then, of course, you know what he adds to the passing game. He has 3 catches for another 48 yards. Does not get into the end zone, but when you get that kind of yards from scrimmage, it doesn't matter. You don't have to.
Yeah, if you're playing in is anybody out there playing in a yards per carry league? Because if you are, you've screwed up fantasy completely.
My God. And then the Bengals, they were coming off a bye week. I thought they would have a little bit, a better showing than what they put up today. AJ Green, he only has 3 catches for 41 yards. It is Brandon LaFell and Tyler Kroft that end up getting the 2 touchdowns from Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton has a pretty rough day, completing barely just over 50% of his passes. He has 2 interceptions to go along with those 2 touchdowns. Antonio Brown, he gets a touchdown, 4 catches, 65 yards. He has a solid day. Juju Smith-Schuster gets a touchdown. Martavis Bryant.
Drop Martavis Bryant.
Dead.
Drop him.
He's dead. Dead in the water.
Yeah, there was a story out this week that they were going to get him more playing time, and maybe it was to showcase him to trade him. 1 catch for 3 yards. You really showed what he can do. This was a frustrating game for me to watch. Andy Dalton was bad. It was bad Andy all over again. You saw in the first 2 games of the season. At halftime, Joe Mixon had 7 carries for 48 yards. Now, Steve, all the other games have refreshed on my thing. So am I wrong when I look and see that he finished the game with 7 carries for 48 yards?
You are not wrong.
What are we doing? That's a pretty good yards per carry. This game wasn't out of hand. I realize they lost by 15 points, but it wasn't out of hand early in the third quarter. I don't understand why they went away from the running game. I don't understand why they start every drive giving the first carry to Jeremy Hill like it's some kind of token, sign that he's the starter. He's not the starter. 4 carries for 7 yards. Stop. Give this guy the ball. Give this guy the football. Yeah, I had him on the swim list, so maybe I'm a little upset.
No, I think
Marv.
I think he's looked better every week. He's been the better-looking running back each and every week.
Didn't make sense. You came out of the bye week. You come out of a bye week with no plan whatsoever.
Yeah, they looked completely lost.
There's 2 guys that this offense. 2 guys this offense should be played around, Steve. Your man A.J. Green and Joe Mixon. I'll never call him my man because we know he's a dirtbag. But as far as if we're just going to look at it from a football standpoint, this guy's a weapon. Learn how to use him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, we're not going to get into character issues. That's not what we're talking about. But he's on the field. He's playing. Give him the ball. It's obvious that he can make plays. So, trying, like you said, they came out at halftime. They're only down 14-20. So, and even if they only scored field goals from then on out, it looks like. So, I don't know. It was a very frustrating day all the way around, unless you were, that had those few studs. Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. They all had great days. Des Bryant. But it was few and far between where you had a stud that really panned out today. LaShawn McCoy finally got in the end zone a couple times. But other than that, it was just ugly. Ugly day.
Russell Wilson, ends up with a good day.
Yes.
But it's just that was that type of day. No big injuries. So we didn't have that type of week, which we've gotten almost every week so far. But today was just about poor play and bad performances.
Yep, except for Delaney Walker. Hopefully he comes back soon.
True. Yes. It's I don't know if that's a season ender, but it'll definitely, I would imagine, going to cost them a few weeks.
Yep. All right. Well, that's all I got. Are we going to get to some finishing thoughts here, Sal?
Do it up.
All right. Thank you guys for listening to this quick update of the Week 7 Fantasy Football Podcast, the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Falafel House. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. You can also check out falafelhouse.com where we put our rankings. We've got streaming articles, waiver wire articles. We've got the new gut feeling article from Jason Tran and Derek, the Fantasy Football Pharmacist. Is that right?
Yes.
Ah.
The FF Pharmacist.
FF
correct.
Pharmacist on Twitter.
McCreef, I believe, is
Derek
Derek's
McCreef.
last name.
That's right. And go check all that stuff out because it's fun. It's all good stuff. All good guys putting all that content out. So go check it out, Sal.
Yeah, I hope that your Monday night goes well for you. Let's get some points out of Jordan Reed this week. We're looking forward to that. I need that. I need something tonight to beat up on this guy Kevin who's not here tonight. Kevin, enjoy your move. Best of luck with all that. And as Kevin always says, please add a charitable aspect to your fantasy football play. Steve, hit the button.